So I was just watching Bernie Sanders on the Joe Rogan podcast, folks, and it made me think of the Urantia book and how this book truly is the solution for the still conflicting ways that various people have viewpoints about how we go about doing the best thing. Remember, it is to be the greatest good for the most amount of people for the longest amount of time. That is the best way to have a world system of things. If anybody does not have that as their philosophy, they should be nowhere near any sort of reigns of power whatsoever. Because what's the alternative? We want to foster the greatest good for a few people, right? You have to have the great. Now, what does the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people? Does that mean everybody just gets to be lazy? Is that good for them? No, it's not. So you have to understand what good is, first of all, and you can't understand what good truly is until you understand the divine creator, God, the Father, Mother. It doesn't matter if you want to think of God as female, male entity. They're both aspects are covered, first of all. The book even speaks of that by saying that the quality of love from the first person of deity is father-like. The quality of love from the second person, the mother-son, they call it. So it's also intercoordinated, but we need to understand qualities of love because they do serve different roles and different functions. If you think about your own father, your relationship with your own father versus your own relationship with your mother, and, you know, there's variations, obviously. But overall, the quality is a different sense of a quality of love. So that's just why we can approach deity and divinity with however you want. If you want to approach it through there's so many female-like avenues to approach deity and divinity. So don't get hung up on the word father if it says father or Jesus said father or something like that. You know, in fact, the forces of evil are jumping in joy when so many reject Jesus' message because, well, first of all, the forces of evil are fostering this narrative that men were superior to women for thousands and thousands of years, right? So they treated them like cattle and property. And so they got that. That was done by the force of evil. But now they're jumping in joy because now when women are now regaining their equality, what they're going to do is reject the idea of God as a father just because of that word father is in there, and they're looking at that as the patriarchy. And rightfully so. It's understandably so. But the force of evil jumping in joy and say, woo, good things we, pigeonholed God so much to be, like this man with a gray beard in the sky that so many are going to reject him, right? But this book helps us open up that understanding without rejecting the idea of a father-like quality of love either. So you don't just have to disambiguate every single aspect, if that's even the right word, I don't even know, of God as, here's the key note, folks, personality. If it's not a personality, then you're just still in this either metaphysical realm of your spirituality, you're in this philosophical realm. But when you understand God as a creator, spiritual personality of love, then you can understand love. Love can't exist between one entity, and you could have like some sort of insidious self-love, which is what they called Lucifer's approach to himself, insidious self-love. But when you understand true love, and love as defined in the book, which is, like we're saying, this is the answer book right here, the desire to do good for others. And you can't have the desire to do good for others if there is no others, and there's no personality, God personality. So there is also all the synthesis aspects as well. So we're not canceling anything out about the unity aspect and saying, well, okay, does that mean we immediately need to go to this duality thing? We're saying you're separate from me. No, there still is all of that connection. We're all from the same source. So we have to have a sense of proportion when trying to approach these things. And then we could be more accepting and understanding of why somebody else might not have that sense of proportion. And we might not bastardize them or treat them worse because they might not have the same religious ideology as us. Well, maybe they just haven't read the Urantia book. But it really does clear it all up, because it really truly is what it says it is, which is a revelation by advanced celestial beings. You're not going to get this from any other human source on the planet. Compare it. Really do a deep comparison. Read any one of man's scriptures and then read this and then see where you're at. Okay, and we're going to give an example of that right now. But the point of this spiel was to say we can truly understand what good is. It's so easy to be on the same page when you strip away that veil. Okay, that veil that's put on you is one of the key forces of evil's tools in their toolbox that they can use and confuse and muddle the situation. It's so easy to confuse and muddle because it seems like it's big and complicated. But when you go back to the source, you can easily sort through all of these issues, and you can allow for enough room for everybody to do and be and free and feel great and feel individual and everything like that, and ascend in the universe. We're talking a big, vast universe, all these vast different personalities. But there is a right and best way to do things. The greatest good for the most amount of people for the longest amount of time. So, just real quickly, what would the greatest good be? Okay, we want universal health care for everybody. I was just watching this on Joe Rogan, so you can check that out. Absolutely, that needs to be done tomorrow. Because we wouldn't look at one of our brothers or sisters in the street and say, hey, you son of a bitch. What you couldn't get yourself together to do some work today, so now you can't, afford medical? Or whatever, you have mental disorder, you can't afford medical? Well, you should die there, you son of a bitch. Okay, right away, that is not your brother and sisterhood of all, right? So, but on the other hand, people are afraid of this concept because they think that it means, well, this person's going to get something that I had to work for, they're going to get for free. And that doesn't sit well with people, and rightfully so. They are not evil for thinking that. We all must contribute. So the absolute perfect solution to this is everybody's required to have a job. But you can have mobility in that. You can, for instance, this is just I'm going on a long thing here, but this just got me thinking. We have our websites like our Glassdoors and our Indeeds and things. If you've ever tried to use them, they're terrible. There's all these broken links. There's all these scams. If you had a socialized version of that, every job in the country is on that. Every employer is required to list every single one of their jobs on that. Look at how efficient you can make that database. It could be working exactly. So people could look at jobs all over the whole entire country and get matched. That would solve a ton right there, because it's a pain looking for a job. What's the next thing? Require people to work, as in if they don't, then they need to be interned. And this is not a very left-leaning type of solution, because people say, what is that? Some sort of, internment type thing. They point that out in the book. If you look at the government on a neighboring planet, they talk about that there is work camps, okay? And if you seriously investigate the problems here, like if you go to like a Kensington Street in Philadelphia, I have never been there, but I have, or maybe I have. I saw the Pope in Philadelphia many years ago. I don't know how close to Kensington. The whole thing was closed off, and there was tanks in the street and stuff. It was crazy. But if you look at videos, or there, maybe you're enmeshed in it right now. That is not a good situation for people. You cannot help that person in any other way other than interning them into a nice, safe place, giving them a nice, safe bed that they can sleep in, and giving them a job to work at. You cannot give them their freedom, unfortunately, because they are going to go out and sleep on the sidewalk and kill themselves on the sidewalk. So if you truly have a heart about what you're doing for that person, you will force them to recover. You have to. If not, they're going to kill themselves in the street. You can give them all all of the best comforts, as far as the best, therapies and this and that. But the thing is it pays for itself, because you're also requiring that they do work. Okay, it's an easy solution, but it means that the left wing has to be okay with interning people. You don't just, willy-nilly round people up the street. You say you have meetings for them and say, this is where you're going to meet. And you show that you're doing your job and everything like that. And when they do that, then they say, okay, great, we don't need to intern you into a work camp. But if they're missing their meetings and they're a mess and they're killing themselves on the sidewalk in the street, then you say, hey, all right, come on, maybe it's better if we just, literally round you up and take you to this work camp. It's going to be the best. At least you could kill yourself in a bed, right? I mean, they're on the sidewalks or whatever. I mean, hopefully they won't kill themselves, but they won't get drugs. And you can do all sorts of therapy. I don't know what the best therapy is, but whatever it is, you can do that for them. And then you can usher them into starting to have a job, starting to rehabilitate, recover, and that sort of thing. But the left has to be okay with detaining people. And then the right has to be okay with the fact that you're going to give medical to all these people. It's going to be a socialized thing that they're going to get medical. And that is just solving that problem. It just solves it right away. But it's not designed to be solved, folks. We are in a world system of things that's functioning exactly the way that the forces of evil want it to function. So it's not designed to be solved. There's going to be agents out there that are going to convince people that it's not okay to pick somebody up that's, on the street with open wounds and injecting open wounds and all this sort of stuff, spreading disease and really harming themselves. Nobody wants that life, but they can't help it's out of their control. Okay. We have to admit that it's not in their control anymore. So when you pick them up, some people do recover and stuff like that, but it's really, really difficult. I can't say that it's out of their control because some people do recover. But for a lot of them, it's just not going well. And if you pick them up and give them a boost and say, it's like a stern parent. And you say, you know what, you just got to do it. You have to do it now. It's over. It's over. It started out with a good run, maybe the first couple months. Okay, anyways, let's look at this. So that's how to solve that. Secular totalitarianism, folks. This is on page 2081. But even after materialism and mechanism have been more or less vanquished, the devastating influence of the 20th century secularism will still blight the spiritual experience of millions of unsuspecting souls. They don't know any different. You have to strive in this world to lift the veil. Many of the Eastern religions are about that. If you look up Zen and the whole thing about seeing the ox's tail, you don't even know there's an ox. People don't even know that there's an ox, and that's just a symbol for enlightenment. The first step in that is seeing the footprints in the sand. You have to swim upstream. You have to be batting out ideas that are just surging at you, designed, programmed by the world system of cosmic prison world that we're in right now. And not because of our own fault or doing or anything like that. It's the forces of evil. But remember, all of this is only on such a small, tiny scale and level. It can't even touch you, It's hard not to let it touch you, and that's the point. Okay? Materialism. What can I get from me? The get principle. Get. Wealth, greed, all those things are gonna... But remember, you can best be served by serving others. So that's the service mentality. That's a Jesus teaching. When you serve, and many others, Jesus, he doesn't have a monopoly on that. That's the universal way. If you really want to help yourself, oh my God, can you imagine if these people turned around today, these billionaires and people that are corrupting this system, buying their political, and you know what, a lot of them, they might think that they're doing it. If they have the philosophy that they want to have, they think it's better to have the greatest amount of good for a very few amount of people. They think that few amount of people are the chosen people, and we are the ones with the best genetics and blah, blah, blah. And so they don't necessarily even think, like Elon Musk wants to take his humanity to Mars because he thinks that's going to save the world. He's backwards and distorted because he's materialistic and he's mechanistic, and so he's not having a spiritual experience. All right? Modern secularism has been fostered by two worldwide influences, folks. This is so important. The father of secularism was the narrow-minded and godless attitude of 19th and 20th century so-called scientists. Atheistic science. Now, that is a slant. If you are an atheistic scientist, that is a scientific dogma. It's not saying that science is wrong. It's not saying that if I measure this rock, it's not 4 billion years old or whatever. It's not saying that. It's saying you can't measure a rock and say 4 billion years old, therefore the Bible is wrong about being 6,000 years old, therefore God doesn't exist. That is atheistic science. When you draw those conclusions because you're reacting against Western man's Bible and you're concluding that there's no God, okay? The mother of modern secularism was the totalitarian medieval Christian church. Look at that, folks. Why? Secularism had its inception as a rising protest against the almost complete domination of Western civilization by the institutionalized Christian church. Rebellion against this authority which wants to trap people under the guise of God. Okay, that's an Old Testament concept. Remember, Jesus reacted against the Sanhedrin and all of them that were trying to collect priest taxes, and you got to donate to the church and everything in order to get favor with God and everything like that. People are like, what the hell? That's bullshit. So let's, obviously Christ is a fallacy created by, that's what they think. Let's zoom in a little bit here. At the time of this revelation, the prevailing intellectual and philosophical climate of both European and American life is decidedly secular, humanistic. Now, remember, this is such an important chapter. This explains so much. Humanistic, you can have humanistic values